何？お前はもう死んでいる。
What is up, guys? It is Daniel, and I am back for another review for me and Mark's project. And today I'm going to be reviewing Subnautica, which many people might have seen. It's been around for quite some time, but I thought I would just review it now, especially that it has recently just come out of early access. And before I talk about the game, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what is Subnautica? Well, Subnautica is a single-player, survival-based adventure game where the player has to survive on a strange planet after their spaceship crash lands. Subnautica was released into the early access community in 2013 and has left early access to become a full game this year in 2018. Developed by Unknown Worlds Entertainment, Subnautica is a great example of how early access can efficiently work. Alright guys, so I'm going to start off with the most important thing I feel like everyone is asking. Does this actually feel like an ocean game? And yes, I'm here to confirm that this is probably one of the best ocean immersion games that I've ever played. Just the way the ocean feels real, the wildlife is dangerous, you actually want to scan things, which is how you get most of your information in the game with your scanner. Definitely all the noises that are created, there are some thermal vents that you can see, there's just a bunch of wildlife, and it definitely feels like a real ocean, and that's definitely one of the most important things, so it definitely does feel like that. I also want to touch on the audio in the game, and while there aren't too many songs that play, there are just a couple. You won't really hear them repeat that often, but there are also some songs. Also, I want to mention the sounds. The sounds are great, even though it's kind of muffled, because if you've ever been underwater, I'm sure some people have, all the noises are kind of muffled. So you can hear, obviously, the animal sounds, and if you have a vehicle, you can hear those noises. So all the noises, they're definitely passable. They're not excellent, but they do get the job done. They're good to listen to. They don't destroy my eardrums when, you know, there's a stalker chasing me. So that's definitely good. The noises are definitely positive. I also want to mention the story to you guys. The story is definitely very, very good in my opinion, and the way it's handled, especially in this game, is excellent. It's more hands-off, so you're kind of told vaguely what you're supposed to do, and then you kind of explore, you kind of progress the story as you explore along. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but it's definitely good. I did complete Subnautica during my playthrough, which is kind of rare, I guess you could say, but definitely the story kept me going. It's not one where you're just because kind of like in FPS games where you're only playing for the gameplay and there's just a story that's tagged along. This is one where you actually want to figure it out, because there are some things that happen through the game that kind of, they don't force you to, but you feel that there's some pressure to complete. So yeah, definitely the story is it's executed very well, and I think it's a great positive to the game. I also want to mention all the mobs to you guys. The mobs are definitely unique. They're definitely cool to look at. You do scan them, which teaches you a little bit more about them. Some of them you can't eat, weirdly. Not sure why, but some of them you can't eat. You can't use for water. The pinkfish, I'm forgetting the name. Those are your best friends at the start of the game, because those get you water. Bladderfish, they give you water at the start of the game. So those are definitely some of your best friends. But of course, all the other mobs are definitely very interesting, especially the reefbacks. The reefbacks are crazy. When the first time I saw one, I was thinking, that is insane. It's huge. But yeah, definitely, all the mobs are very interesting, especially the dangerous ones. There are some really interesting ones and really, really annoying ones that I'll talk about later. But definitely the mobs are interesting, and they definitely help you become more immersed in the world. Also, as you progress through the game, you will discover new biomes. You'll discover the mushroom biome, or the barren biome near your crashed ship, or the kind of coral reef that you spawn on in your life pod. So definitely the biomes are very interesting. It will keep you engaged, so you're not just, moving along in your sea moth and all you see is just sand. It's definitely very interesting, very varied, and I was especially kind of creeped out at some of the ones that you go to, which is great because it just gets you more immersed in the game. And definitely the different biomes, the different areas that you're exploring definitely help to further that. Also, another great positive that I think is really, really good for this game is how every once in a while you will get a little warning on the left side of your screen that says press F8 to report any bugs or any glitches that you find. I think that's really great because it actually shows that the developers really want to know what kind of problems you have. And I definitely have reported some bugs because there definitely are some. Even though it's out of early access, there's still some bugs, which is understandable. It happens to any game. But yeah, there are some. There's a way to report your bugs if you want to do it directly through the game, or you can do it in the community, obviously, if you join the community. But I definitely think that having a readily available way to report your bugs definitely makes players want to improve your game, and that's definitely really good. And finally, guys, the last positive that I want to mention that I could find was definitely the graphics, and the graphics definitely look very, very good. They kind of fit the atmosphere that you're playing in. It's kind of a mix between Borderlands and Overwatch. If you kind of want to mix those two together, that's kind of what you're going to get here. Obviously, you can see it in the background from my gameplay. So that's what you'll be playing with, and the graphics definitely make the game more enjoyable, and I think that's definitely a positive. Alright guys, and now we're going to be moving on to the neutrals. There are only a couple that I could find, which is a blessing or a curse, as I've stated in earlier reviews. But here, it's alright. There are only a couple small kind of tidbits that I found that weren't really positives or negatives. It kind of depends on the way you look at it. So the first one is definitely how finding certain materials, like copper or silver or gold, materials like that, is definitely sort of random, and it's kind of frustrating when you first start playing because you don't have the ability to dive much deeper because you don't have a very big oxygen tank and you don't have any vehicles besides your Sea Glide, which you will get fairly early on. But very good. It's kind of random how you get resources, which isn't necessarily bad, but it's not necessarily good because sometimes you need one item but you can't find it. So I just wanted to mention that. That could annoy some people. Some people might enjoy it. That's just one I wanted to mention. Also, in regards to finding different things, blueprints are definitely a thing that you'll have to deal with. Blueprints help you discover new items, so you'll be scanning things with your scanner, which is your best friend. You'll always have it with you. So it definitely depends on what you're scanning. So when you explore, you'll find wrecks that have crashed off from your ship, and they'll have certain things. So you might find a power extender, which lets power from your base go farther. But you might not find, say, a battery charger, which you might have to find in a different area. So that's also kind of random. Again, you might like it, you might enjoy it. Either way, it's part of the game, so you're gonna have to deal with it. Just wanted to mention it to you guys because this could also turn some people off from the game. And finally, I also have to mention that VR support is a thing. I don't have a VR, so I can't exactly tell you guys that it was good or not. I have heard from some of my friends that do have a VR and have played this game that it's not the best VR experience. Especially, I can imagine, because it's underwater, so you have to look in a lot of different directions. But that's besides the point. The thing is that there is VR support, so whether you have a VR, if you don't have a VR, you can use it. If you don't have a VR, I don't think it will matter because the game looks excellent the way it does. So if you have a VR, it'll be good for you, but if you don't, it's not bad. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay guys, and now we're moving on to the dreaded negatives that I do have to say for all reviews, and Subnautica is no exception. There are only a couple, however, which is excellent. So the only really big glitch kind of bug that I've found is that there are some ocean clipping issues, especially in the escape pod that you do start in. That's not a spoiler, guys, trust me. You will be in that escape pod for a while. But there are some motion clipping issues that can occur through the floor that you might have to deal with, which isn't really a big deal. It doesn't distract you from anything. I only saw it a couple times, so that's just one kind of bug that I found. Also, as in it seems almost all survival games, the water and food bars, as you can see in the bottom left next to my O2 tank, the blue and yellow ones, decrease way too fast. On this planet, the days do go by quicker, so I can understand when you need to eat or drink more often, but that doesn't change the fact that in the early game you are swimming around looking for bladderfish, which are the fish that give you water, which are the kind of the pink ones that you might see me holding sometimes. throughout the gameplay, is that you are going around looking for those a lot of the time. And it's kind of a problem that I've seen in a lot of survival games where they don't really, because obviously you don't want to have your player wait 7 hours to eat or drink, because then that's not a survival game. But also you don't want to do it too quickly, because then it doesn't really make much sense. But definitely here, I think it does decrease a little bit too quickly, so you will always kind of have to have some food and some water in your inventory. And I just wanted to mention also, I wanted to mention you guys the journal organization. As you can see on screen right now is what your journal is. It is an absolute mess. It is a disaster. There are so many tabs, and it's just in one straight line. And if you don't check it for a while, when you find PDAs for what people have done, and once you scan things and you don't look at it for a while, and then you find one that you need and you forget to hit tab in time, then you get to go on this 20-minute long journey where your food bar and when your water bar is going down while you're skimming through your journal trying to find it. In short, guys, the journal is just a disaster. It needs to be reworked, so just be prepared for a really unorganized journal that you will have to deal with as you play through the game. So when you find PDAs, my personal recommendation, read them immediately, see if there's anything important that you need to read. But other than that, that's it. And one last negative I wanted to mention to you guys is about the prawn suit. The walking in the prawn suit, which is basically just a mech that you'll get later in the game if you decide to get it. The walking is a bit kind of janky, especially when you're walking up or down. The legs will get caught on things that you wouldn't expect them to get caught on, which can be a problem, especially when you're being chased by certain leviathans or by certain mobs. So I just wanted to mention that the prawn suit walking is a bit weird, so you will have to keep that in mind if you decide to build a prawn suit when you get the game. A final thing I want to mention to you guys in the negatives is that as you progress later in the game and you get more materials and you start putting them in your base in lockers, it does get a fair bit laggy, especially if you have other energy consuming things. So in my base, for example, I have a nuclear reactor, 5 solar panels, I have a water filtration system, and a bunch of other stuff that's in there. So when I go in and have around 15 full lockers which hold around 40 items, so that's hundreds of items. So when I go into my base, it is a little bit laggy, so you will need to know that if you don't want to experience the lag. I know this definitely is an FPS lag. It is just the game's, how it's built. So if you don't want to have lag, you will have to build several different bases. When I personally played the game, I didn't like having several bases. You might like having several bases, personal preference, but that's just one thing I wanted to mention, is that it will be very laggy as you get into the late stages of the game, so you may want to spread out your items. And now, guys, we are kind of moving into my more personal opinion negatives that I think should be addressed, at least in some form. The first thing is the battery life. In my opinion, batteries and power cells go down way too quickly for the cost that it is to make them, especially power cells in general, because they cost 2 batteries. In my personal opinion, they go down way too quickly to charge. And if you don't find the certain blueprints to make the charging stations, it can be a really big issue, because you would have to make new ones, and that costs a lot of resources that you might not have. So that's just one of the things that I wanted to mention. And my last personal kind of negative that I have for this game are the warper mobs. Please remove them from the game. They serve really no purpose other than to get you killed, obviously, which is the point of mobs. I'm not just hating on it because I've died. And 2, it can seriously mess with your vehicles. So the warper is a mob that can teleport you out of your Seamoth or your prawn suit, and this can be a huge problem, especially if you don't have the depth capacity. So normally the prawn suit has 900 meters depth, or 800 meters depth, somewhere around there, I don't remember. But if you're jumping over a gap and the gap goes below your crush depth, and then you get teleported out of your prawn suit is going to keep falling down to that depth, and it's going to be destroyed. And I think that's seriously a problem, especially when you go into like the lower cave biomes, because warpers are legit everywhere. and there's so many of them. I was teleported out of my prawn suit 4 times trying to get back to my Cyclops. So my personal opinion, they shouldn't be in the game. This causes huge problems, and they can destroy your vehicles, which are a rather expensive investment in resources. So that was just one more thing I wanted to mention, and this wraps up the negatives. Alright guys, and with all those out of the way, what is my overall opinion on Subnautica? Well, Subnautica is a fantastic game. While it does have its flaws, it is an exceptional example of how early access can and should work. With an interesting story, map, and objective, players will enjoy themselves with many hours of exploring, crafting, building, and much more. Even with the small problems that Subnautica has, they are far outweighed by the other content available, and as a result, Subnautica will receive a 10 out of 10 score. This is a must-buy, and even if you personally don't like survival games, trust me on this one guys, you will enjoy this, you will get some kind of value for your money. So thank you guys for watching, this has been Daniel, and I will see you guys in the next review.